I think everyone is concerned more or less on how their arms look in photographs. Guys might want them to look muscular, and of course athletic girls would too. But most girls don't want their arms to look too heavy. So let's go into some corrective posing for them, as well as just some suggestions for variety in arm posing. When a person puts weight on a locked, straight arm, that's going to bulk out a muscle on the back of the upper arm. When that happens, just ask them to take the weight off of it. It won't show in the photograph that they're not really resting on it, but it'll sure look a lot better and save you from having to do some liquefy if that's even possible. And that's what happened here. She's resting on the piano with her arm, and that bulked out the top of her arm. So by taking all of the weight off of that arm, it slimmed it way down. There's another way we can cause a problem with bulking out the arm when we didn't pose the person properly. Allowing them to hold that arm tight against their body makes that part of the arm look wider. And the answer to that is to bring it away from the body. When a person is lying down and the arm is pressed against the body, there will definitely be some broadening of the arm. And you better take care of that somehow if you hope to sell that photograph. You could have them just lift the arm away from the body as we did in the previous image, or just alter the pose like this. The same problem of widening the arm can happen to the forearm, although to a lesser extent because we have less loose tissue mass there. Again, either separate the arm from the body or change the pose. If you didn't see the thickening of an arm during the photo session, you could resort to liquefy. It's just another tool that we can use to correct our posing mistake. That's what I had to do here, not only to the arm but also to her calf that was pancaked against her other leg. Now the opposite, where we want the arms to be bigger. His arms out away from his body look, okay, but they could look more muscular if we did something different. Let's see what we can do. So we crossed his arms and I had him put his wrists under his biceps, and that bulks that out and helps make him look more muscular. Just crossing the arms already bulks out arms, so for guys like this, pushing against the biceps wasn't really needed. Both arms behind her head just didn't feel right for this overall composition. This felt a little softer, and she's making better use of the structure that she's leaning against. If we're going to do the arms up and the armpits are exposed, then you can count on having to retouch them. Some photographers don't like seeing armpits. I have no problem with that. But it's easy enough to retouch armpits. I like this pose with her arm up over her head, and the arm that is up is the far arm, so we don't have the problem of the armpit. Of course, if you can hide those pits with hair, that's good too. Most photographers prefer not to have the near arm up, exposing that armpit. You can usually keep the same feeling of the image by just reversing it, keeping the near arm down with the far arm up. In addition to avoiding looking into an armpit, it avoids an arm interfering with the view of the face. Sometimes it works for girls to be looking through their arm, and that's what we did here. And here, it's a playful look. This isn't a pose that comes naturally for me to ask a guy to do, but sometimes it works just great. It works especially well when they have something for them to lean against. I think it works especially easy when they have something to lean back against. It works especially well when we're lying down because that's just a natural thing that we do. I'm not quite as fond of this, not having any reason to be putting the arms up there other than to show off your physique. But if you've got it, then show it. Why not? With this somewhat open pose and the way he was turned from the lighting, he doesn't look as strong as I'm sure he would like to have. So I had him cross his arms and carefully twist so the light creates the most dramatic effect. He's just a little guy, but the posing and lighting made him look more imposing. For girls, generally it's not the best thing to have them tuck their wrists under the biceps. There's a better way to make that pose work. It's usually more gentle, flattering, feminine, model-like to have them bring their hands out like this, both of them in front. If you do this pose without both hands showing, it's better to have the hand tucked in away from the camera. That said, this type of pose doesn't work very well for heavier people, especially with short arms, as you can see. I'm bothered a bit by the hand in front. That gets attention because his shirt is black, and it's directly under his face. I could have him tuck it in farther, but that would look too squeezed. Or I could have him reverse his arms, but people cross their arms a certain way that they're accustomed to, and they'd feel awkward doing it the other way. Try it, and you'll see what I mean. So I just had him face the other direction. His dark shirt worked out just fine facing the light, and now his face is short lit, which is usually a more attractive light for faces. Another interesting way to do this is just to have them wrap their arms around themselves or give themselves a hug. They understand what that means, and sometimes it works. That kind of thing worked pretty well here for a guy. Crossed arms resting on the knee. Yeah, this looks like the first one we did in this spot, and you can kind of tell that something else needs to be done. Just the hands resting there just isn't interesting enough. So we had her cross her wrists, and that's all we needed to complete the pose. I had her cross her arms at a pretty extreme angle because I wasn't cropping very low, so I needed to have them really tight in order for that to look right. Because of those flowers behind her, I wanted her arms to do something sort of similar to echo that compositional style. Her left hand on her shin just didn't seem to work quite right. It looks kind of droopy just hanging down there. So I had her bring it up and put it between her arm and the knee. And I'm okay with that one. This image with both arms at the same angle suggests a kind of a box composition, which is a very strong shape for a guy. And that's what I saw when I had him do that. For this image, we're going to use her arm to cover her tummy. So you can see here we used her arm to cover her midsection. I like to direct girls to put their arms behind their backs because it's an easy pose to direct and something easy for them to do. And this seems to work no matter where they are, whether they're leaning up against something or outside. Some photographers like to see a far arm. They don't want to see no arm, implying that the person doesn't have an arm that they can't see, which is kind of silly. But okay, fine. If you like that better, then what I did was take the far arm from a different pose and put it into the completed image.